So the enemy that we face is in our own minds. And I know that it's cultural within our community that many times we see obstacles and things that get in our way as failure, and that failure is unacceptable. We have to start to understand that failure is necessary.
Well, welcome to the Spirit Change podcast. I have a guest on today, Dan Young, who is a recording saxophonist, a music producer, and an entrepreneur. Super excited to have him in the room today to talk about his Spirit Change moment. Dan, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I'm actually honored to be here, of course, amongst one of the top 100 women to know in business. So this is really much of a treat for me too. So thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to be here.
My pleasure, Dan. So I always start out the Spirit Change podcast with getting to know our guests. So Dan, tell us, if you could describe yourself in one word, what word would that be and why?
Boy, you have to limit it to one word, right? So I think I would really, if there's one word, it's optimistic. I am just always, I've always believed that there are greater things ahead, and that the current circumstances that one may be in are temporary, but they always lead to us to greater things. That sometimes the suffering is necessary in order to become disciplined and chiseled to be able to do the right thing in the future. So I would call myself just optimistic. That's the best way I could put it.
I love that. And, you think about optimism and you even think about spirit change, because spirit change is really that life-defining moment. You're not quite sure how it's going to turn out, but you have to make this decision on how you're going to move forward. And so I like that word of optimism, because it just reminds our viewers that, hey, you never really know what life is going to turn out. But if you have this hope and optimism by your side and kind of carrying you forward, then, hey, you're bound to do great things. Dan, when you think about spirit change, what is that spirit change moment that you want to kick this conversation off with?
Sure. I've I've grown, of course, in music, but I've also been a salesman. I'm a very good salesman. I've always sold things primarily with financial institutions, student loans, unsecured debts, a variety of different means in finance. And I've always been very good as a salesman. And so I worked for a corporation for a long time, involved in what we call debt settlement. And because of COVID, they had to let a lot of people go. And so me having to leave that institution was a real interruption. I wasn't fully prepared for it, but it was just a reminder that I needed to be busy on what I'm doing now with my company at SONICA. And it provided the means for me no longer to have and I hate to say it as an excuse, but the excuse of I've got to work this full-time job. It kind of was a release. I'm a man who I wouldn't say I'm religious, but I do follow God a lot, and I feel that He speaks to me in ways of allowing things to happen, closing doors, opening doors. So there were a lot of doors that were closed, but there were many doors that were opening up. So the time of being let go from a company was a big spirit change moment for me, because it led me down this path of really pursuing this career with SONICA full time.
Wow. And you think what I heard you really talk, as you were talking about your spirit change moment, is like this opportunity presented itself for you to actually do what you love, right?
Yeah.
And so many times when we're going through life, we get so complacent in where we are. And, to your point, God gives us these visions that we're supposed to walk boldly towards, but we get so comfortable in what it is that we're doing that we neglect to see those visions all the way through. And so this gave you the opportunity to create something new, but do something that you truly love and that has been passionate, that has been, a passion of your heart for so long. So
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about the music. Tell us about how you really got into this and where do you hope it to go?
Sure. Yeah, as I said, I've been in music my whole life. Since I was 10, I've played saxophones, and going through school, going through a lot of private lessons. I really felt in my heart that my life was going to be somehow wrapped around music, that it was just going to be wrapped around music somehow. There's not a single book or a single path that you can follow that tells you how to be a successful musician. There just isn't. There are many people who've tried, many people who've written books, and there's a lot of YouTube videos on how to be successful, but you never know. So I just tried to forge my own path. So in the early 2000s, I got together with some friends who are artists, and I said, let's do an album. I have no money to pay. I really don't know, I'm not a label. I don't know if a label to push this to, but let's do an album. So all the guys said, okay. I had guys who were songwriters, guys who were pianists, some who played drums, bass, etc. We created an album in early 2000. It was called Image of You. And it's still on Spotify. It's still on Apple Music if you want to check it out. And it turned out to be a really fun little album. Well, then later on, there was an advertisement through QVC back in early 2001, where they said, and this was in July, they said, if you can come up with a Christmas album and have 1,500 units, and we're looking for independent musicians, then we'll advertise your music with our gift bag that we're advertising in December. And so you have to have 1,500 CDs, back then there were CDs, 1,500 CDs by September 1st or something like that. You make a presentation in LA and we'll see what we can do. So I went to the same guys again. And I said, hey, listen, here's an opportunity. We can create a Christmas album. It's July, it's here in Arizona, it's 114 degrees outside, but let's find a way to create a Christmas album. And all the guys said, yeah, let's do it. Let's go for it. So we chose several Christmas songs that I really liked. We set them to jazz. So it's a jazz Christmas album. And we took all that time, and it's kind of funny thinking of Sleigh Ride while you're recording it when it's 114 degrees outside, right? So we're recording music at this church that allowed us to have some time to use it was a multi-track recording station that we used. I found people who could sing, who were willing to sing on our project, and it turned out to be this beautiful thing. Well, long story short, we ended up having the songs done under budget and well ahead of time. So I went to LA, made my presentation to QVC, and they said no. So I said, okay, not a problem. So we took the CDs back to Arizona and we said, well, we can do. Well, let's go to churches. Let's play in churches. Let's just do concerts. So for that entire year, we went to about 8 or 9 different churches. We did concerts. We sold these CDs. I sold out of them. I had to get more manufactured. The CD started getting played on radio stations. Here locally in Arizona, we have KEZ, and that's the Christmas station. They played my music through a friend of mine who was a program director at KEZ. They played my music all through there, and it was so much fun. Everyone had a great time. And so I'm learning through this process, really anything can be done. I'm not anything special. I just decided, I want to do something cool. And I rallied friends of mine who believed in this with me and who said, yeah, we can do something cool too. So we created this Christmas album. And you can find it Spotify again. You can go to iTunes. I did a third album called Hymnology, where we took hymns that I grew up in church that I liked and we set them to jazz. It's called Hymnology. It's a study of jazz and music. That's also there too. Did that with very little money at all. All that being said, is that I've known for a long time that if there's something that you feel called and drawn to do, and again, not being overly religious about it, I give it to God. God draws the people and brings them to me. So fast forwarding with SONICA, my current company, a music production company, it's very much the same story, where I've had this drawn, and I feel drawn to do this, to create this company. So we make great music for churches and for individuals, for folks, just great music. We have this library. You can subscribe to it. You can do a lot of things with this music to draw to your video. And I'm gaining more people who are believing in this vision with me, who are just being drawn to this. And I'm just getting started. I'm not even close to scratching the surface as to where we're going. So every day is just exciting. It's thrilling. There are some nights I can't sleep because I'm excited about what we're doing. And consistently, God brings new people into my path who feel this vision with me and go, what can I do to help you? And it's an incredible story of passion. So that's kind of my story, how music has just always been a part of my life. I think in music. When I sleep, I'm sleeping music. My conversation, this has a theme song right now as we're speaking in my mind. There's just so many things in music that I enjoy. I think it's the best way to tell stories. It's the best way to feel emotion. And if I can create something to where we are consistently telling stories, then we're going to do some incredible things in this world. That's it, I guess.
Okay, so there is so much that you shared, and so I want to back up just a little bit, because when you were talking about just even your word optimism, but then another word came out, opportunity. And so many times when I think about entrepreneurship, and then I think about it even from a cultural perspective, so even
Sure.
in a little bit deeper. So a lot of minority-owned businesses are started out of necessity instead
True.
of opportunity,
Mhm.
right? And so yours was a little bit of necessity, but I hear that for the bulk of it, it was opportunity. You saw this opportunity arise, where, first of all, you had space now to walk into your dreams, your goals, your hopes,
Yep.
but you seized opportunities. And just as I'm listening to your story, and as you're talking about how this opportunity presented itself for you to do a Christmas DVD, or excuse me, a Christmas CD.
Yeah.
But then also, that even when you were told no, you didn't stop. And I
Right.
think that was a message right there in and of itself. It's just, especially in the space of entrepreneurs, I see so many people that start something, but when they hit that first point
Yeah.
of opposition, or they keep being told no, they just continue, or they discontinue, not
Right.
discontinue. Sometimes they just stop
Sure.
because
Sure.
they've hit so many obstacles in their lives that they just don't know how to keep pushing forward.
Yeah.
When you think back even over that season of your life, or even the season where you're just getting started really as this budding entrepreneur, creating this space for music and to utilize music
Right.
to your stories, or to help facilitate messages within the church, right?
Yeah.
So how do you help navigate your own company,
Okay.
even in the face of no, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's a tremendous factor when it comes to not only entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
but in everything. Um, the enemy that we mostly face when it comes to hearing no, the enemy we face is in our own mind. It's me. If somebody tells me, "Hey, Dan, I don't think if I'm on this mission of trying to lose weight, and I say, hey, listen, I need to manage my eating, I need to work out more," and somebody walks up to me and says, "Hey, Dan, you're just never going to lose the weight. No matter what you do, you're gonna not lose the weight." I have one of two things with which I can respond. I can either accept what they say and internalize and say, "I'm never going to lose weight," and just that be the end of it. Or I can say, well, I don't take what you have to say. I know I can, and I'm going to continue to try to do so. That is in everything. And in entrepreneurship, there are many things that can be a distraction, that can be seen as an obstacle to slow you down, even up to things like bankruptcy. You can be completely bankrupt and make that as a sign that maybe this is the wrong thing to do. Or you can say, what can I learn from this? Maybe there's some things I'm doing wrong. Maybe there's other people I need to involve who understand finance better than I do. Maybe there are just practices I'm doing I need to stop. So the enemy that we face is in our own minds. And I know that it's cultural within our community, that many times we see obstacles and things that get in our way as failure, and that failure is unacceptable. We have to start to understand that failure is necessary. Failure is absolutely necessary. And I saw this one speaker, he said this one time, I thought it was really fascinating. He said, what if you knew there were a finite set of no's before you heard yes? So let's say that in every sale or every conversation, you're going to come across 28 no's before you get a yes. Well, then you start to understand it's just a matter of getting past those no's. So it's just a matter of getting past those no's. So if I say, "Hey, Angela, I want to sell you this pair of reader glasses," and you say no, and I say, "Okay, well, that's one." Then I go to somebody else. I want to sell you this pair of reader glasses. They say, no, that's 2. Okay. So I can keep track of that until I get to 28. I'm excited to hear that next no. I'm excited to hear that last no, because I know the next one's going to be yes, and it's good. So what if we have just a finite level of failures, of things that go wrong before we hit the great one? That makes me excited, because I know that I'm going to face hardships. I know that I'm going to face things that aren't going to go right. I know there are things I still need to learn that I'm not doing right. Once I get past those, it's going to be great. I just want to get past that as quickly as I can so I can start to hit the good things. So in our minds, we have to remember, we are our worst enemies here. Just because we hear no doesn't mean that it's done. It just means that we need to get past it and get to where we hear the yeses.
Yeah. And, as you were talking, it makes me think about first a couple of things, right? The growth mindset. So in order to get to where we want to go, and even to create the life that we want, we have to have a growth mindset. And oftentimes, especially when we're navigating through seasons of change, we really can't get beyond that season because, to your point, we have this limited thinking, right? The no's maybe are distractions or barriers, or even just, the obstacle of our own mind. You talked a bit about that. And I can appreciate that, especially, working with so many different types of professionals that really struggle with leading and managing through change. So for somebody, who just lost their job, they might just only see this loss. But for you, again, going back to the word of optimism, you saw this opportunity. And when I think about change and change management in and of itself, you have to be willing to see the possibilities and not just the problems, right?
True,
You got
true.
to be able to see what's out there, and
Right.
and take and capitalize off of that time that you're in, and keep moving forward. I know that there's, and I can't remember the lady's name, but she does the 1, 2, 3, go. And
Yes, I
so
know she is. Yeah,
okay, so
I know she is.
it's almost like we talk ourselves out
Yeah.
of, those opportunities because of the problems that we see. Dan, as you talked about, the growth mindset or looking for those opportunities, you also talked about the failures. I often say, we don't fail, we learn forward, because that word failure can have so many people stuck. And when you think about the biggest lessons that you've learned over that time, even in your quote unquote failures, what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned through that spirit change moment, and how do you apply them now?
I wish I could say that I've learned everything I need to know about failure, but I'm still in that. I'm still in it. I'm still facing elements of where I don't measure up to the expectations that I've set on myself or that other people have on me. So it's still happening. So I still have to receive what are perceived failures and take them as um, guardrails or navigations to move me in the right directions. Now I have to really just put an overarching aspect to this. I trust in God. I've told God in my conversations with him that I give everything to him. I trust him in everything. And that if he opens doors, I'll receive them as opening doors. And if doors are closed, I'll receive them as closed doors. And so with that aspect, overarchingly, there are times where there are doors that get slammed shut. I'm starting to receive those as navigation. This is perhaps maybe not the right way to go. And then there are times where there are doors that just swing wide open and I can't help but to walk through them or to just jump through those. So overarchingly, I'm trying to understand that when there are perceived failures, not to be hurt by them, but to react better with them. So when a loan doesn't come through, or if I don't get that meeting that I should have had that I thought was going to do things, that doesn't come into fruition, instead of grousing about it and being upset and thinking that, oh, it's, woe is me, I'm trying to really take that as, this is part of God's plan. It's okay. You're still doing what you need to do. You're not doing things wrong. It's just that this particular path is not the right way to go. When we first started this project of Sonica back in March of 2018, there was very little in terms of focus. We had lots of ideas of what we were going to do. It was just so wide open. But it was over these past 4 years of chiseling down, going down one way, having it be a closed door, going down another way, that a closed door, this a closed door, to where we've been able to narrow our focus and see specifically where we're going, specifically what we're after, and specifically how we can help people. Getting that chiseled down only came through trial and error, where we tried things that didn't work. We tried things that seemed to work really well, maybe even for a short period of time, to where we now are where we have to be. So I'm still in that aspect of receiving failure as signals. This is the right way to go. This is maybe a different way. Let's try that, instead of being defeated by it.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So there is so much. I heard, first of all, lean into your faith. So all of us have faith in something, right?
Sure, I
But
think
for
we do.
you, for you, it's really leaning into that faith. What is God saying to me in this moment? How is he using me in this moment? But most importantly, what is he showing me in this moment?
Yes.
And then I loved how you couched failures in perceived failures.
Mhm.
Because that's truly all they are.
Yes.
It's the constructs of our minds telling us that we're not really leveling up, right? We're not where we're supposed to be. But says who? Says who, right? We're gauging this based off of what? And so
Yeah.
go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I was just going to say, there are many things I've really wanted, that I really wanted in my life, that thank God I did not receive them. I'm very grateful. There are many things I really wanted, did not go that way, because I'd be living a very different life than I am now, possibly a very destructive life that I am now. So that's kind of a microcosm of that aspect. But broader speaking, you can call it God, you can call it Holy Spirit, you can call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. There's a force overarchingly that's over you. And if you release yourself to that, then you'll find that you'll be living a far better life than hoping and wishing and being defeated when things don't go away that you need to. That helps me maintain my optimism, as I've said, is that I realize that I'm not in control of this, but I've released my control to God, and he opens my paths for me, and he brings people to me. He brings resources to me. So there are many things that I'm very glad I did not get that I had hoped for in my youth, particularly.
Yeah. And as you were talking earlier, I wrote down the words using your failures as guardrails. And I thought, how powerful is that? Because it really gives you, it appears to have given you this path to go down, right?
Sure.
It showed you what was working, what didn't work. And then as you were talking about even developing out Sonica and working with your team, you had this really broad focus, it sounds like. And over time, you've been able to narrow it down and get a clear vision. And I think about the Bible scripture from Habakkuk 2:2, write the vision, make it plain so that the people may run with it.
Mhm.
And when I think about business ownership, often we as the business owner, we have this huge vision for ourselves, right? And for our businesses, but we neglect to actually make it plain enough to where people can actually run with it. And
Yes.
as you think about your journey, and as you talked about narrowing it down, let's talk to that business owner right now that has this huge vision. They're working towards it, but they just haven't figured out how to narrow it down. What would you say to them?
You know, water flowing follows a path of least resistance. So there are paths that one will follow that seem to be very easy, and not easy in the sense of just it's simple, but without a lot of resistance and pushback. Generally, there are of course lots of insularies along the outside of the spectrum. Generally speaking, when you're in a path to where you are in a way doing the things you are meant to do, generally speaking, things go rather easily. Things generally come in a way to where it's not so much effort and work and you're killing yourself just to open small doors. Again, generally speaking. So if you are in music or if you're doing something and you're creating a project, and there are times where you're just flowing, you forget even to eat lunch, things are just clicking and you've created something beautiful and people respond to you in a way where like, that's beautiful work. And, I'd even love to pay you for that work you've done. That's a really good signal that possibly could be the way where you need to go. However, if you're involved in something and you're just hitting your head up against the wall and you try something, it's not working, you're not having fun, you're not enjoying yourself, other people aren't seeming to get what you want to do, that's also a signal to tell you that you need to refine the direction you're going in. You need to refine your search so that you can clarify what it is you're after, so that you can effectively describe what's in your heart, what you can effectively describe what's in your mind. And somebody looks at you and they say, I get it. How can I help you? That's a great signal to tell you that you're going along the right way. Follow that example over and over and over and over again in every aspect of what you're doing. If you're a musician, as many people are, you've got your home studio. So I can't show you with my camera, but I've got a little of the home studio around me where I've got a computer. I don't have my keyboard anymore here, but a lot of different things here. It's a little bit of a home studio. Many people have those. And financially, it's pretty easy to set one up. It doesn't cost that much to do it. But I don't have the gift of being able to create music. I'm not that good. I have a co-founder who is a tremendous songwriter. He's good at that sort of thing. He's great. So to have me doing the songwriting and not do the management part of this would be a big mistake because I can't write. And he's not a manager. He'll tell you that. His name is Danny Laura. He's been with me since day one, by the way. I love the man. He's just a great, great, great partner. But I'm the manager. I'm the face of this company, and he creates the music. He works with the other musicians. The path of least resistance for us is to let me do the management. Let me be the CEO, the face of the company, the spearhead. This is the direction we're going in. And he is a great creator of music. He brings musicians together. He's written a lot of stuff. He's really, really good. Let him do that. And he's awesome at it. People pay him great money for what he does. So if you're at a point to where you're creating music and you're not having people listen to you and it's difficult and it's not passionate for you, consider something that is passionate for you, that people recognize what you're doing. It might not be creating the music. Maybe it's in producing. Maybe it's in critiquing. You could be a music critic, where you're listening to music and you're giving people honest feedback about how their work makes you feel. And you can actually do that as well. There are many people who do that. There are voiceover artists. There are synchronization artists, people who know how to take music and connect it to video to make it create something. There are people who do that. So there are a variety of different things you can do, not necessarily in creating music, but that are surrounded by music if you have a passion for it. But be open to investigating what's out there.
Yeah. What I love about what you said, okay, so it's applicable across industries, right? So music is what you're passionate about. Music is what you do. And so for someone else, it might be writing. For someone else, it might be, cooking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so they can insert whatever their passion is. But what I heard you specifically say, Dan, is find what you are most passionate about, what you are the best at, and
Yes.
do that, and find people within your life
Yes.
help you fulfill the other areas and the other needs that you need within your company.
Yes. Yes. And, for me, finances, and not so much as it used to, but finances still kind of scare me a little bit. The whole money aspect behind things. It's always just been, and I'm sure if you were a psychologist and you wanted to sit me down on your couch, I'm sure we could have a long conversation as to the reasons why. But finances has always been just kind of this little thing where, it just is bothers me. So I have to have people around me who understand finances better and who can deal with finances better. Music, I love. Creation, I love. Selling music, I love. Synchronizing music, things together, love doing those things. And it's fun for me. But what's funny to me is that few people love to sell. Few people like doing what I'm doing, where I sell music and I talk about that terrifies some people. They really have a hard time with it. So we all have those things that we do great. And there are some things that we have holes in our swing. And I just try to fill those holes with people who are passionate about those things. There are people who are passionate about accounting. I don't know why, but there are people who are. There are people who are passionate about marketing, people who are passionate about sciences, about creating websites. There are different people who have passions on things. And if you can surround yourself with the right people who have those passions, you'll create something great. Little side story. So when I did my album, the first album back in 2000 at that time. My son was born. I was part of several different churches. I played music, around at different churches. I knew a guy who played drums really well. Actually, a few guys. Guy played bass. Guy played guitar. Guy who created music. Guy played piano, whatever. And when I wanted to do this album, I brought them over to my apartment at the time. And my wife made them dinner, and we all sat. And afterwards, and I said, "Hey guys," and I told them what I wanted to do. And I looked at the drummer. I said, "Dude, you play drums better than anyone I know. I want you to just do drums." The guy who played piano, I said, "Dude, you do piano really well. I play saxophones. You play bass. You do recording really well. If we have a project and a place in mind, we can do something really great together." And sure enough, each one of them were excited about what they did because they were passionate about what they did. They needed someone in my position who could captain the ship, who could take the spear and say, "We're going in that direction. You do what you do, follow me, and we go here." And we have an endpoint, and it turned out to be beautiful. So I'd say, be the captain of your ship. Find those crewmates who are amazing at what they do, that are passionate about what they do. Tell them, do what you are passionate about and follow me, and we can do great things together. And amazing things happen when you have that perspective.
Wow, I love that. Dan, I think that is, I mean, you summarized it well, right? Find what you're extremely great at, find your people, and gosh, go out and make it happen. And so, when I think about just entrepreneurship as a whole, and just even the paths that, like how our paths have really crossed, so many people can really take this message and really learn and apply it to what they're currently going through, right? In these
Yes.
moments, because one thing that COVID did do, and the same thing it did for you, it shifted so many people's lives. It caused so many people to think differently, to question, am I really doing what I love? Am I living on purpose? Am I living with a purpose?
Yeah.
And I think that those words that you just said were so brilliant. And it's such a great way to close. I can't even summarize it, right? But
Awesome.
thank you so much for being part of the Spirit Change podcast.
It's been a
Truly
pleasure.
been a pleasure. Yeah. So thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you for having me. This was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Angela. I'm glad to have been here.
I appreciate you tuning in to this episode of Spirit Change. Be sure to stay connected for future episodes. You can follow me on social media or visit my website at angelargarman.com. Talk to you soon.